disputes over school redistricting. And I wouldn't want that to happen in Cumberland or in Rhode Island. Ms. Rogalski had mentioned this evening about no school is better than the other, and I believe that. I thought Bethany Silva and Tony DeMona did a heck of a job with their presentation, and I love Mr. DeMona's attitude of celebrating all the schools all together. So I celebrate all of the schools in Cumberland. But for me, it's not about a singular school being better, it's about continuity of instruction. And as a teacher in Massachusetts of the MCAS, I know how hard it is to get back that learning loss in post-pandemic times. And nothing helps my students in the classroom or my 3 children more than when they're in an environment that provides continuity. And this proposal does not provide continuity for the 38 students who live in Lippert Estates. It's 2024. We're all aware of the importance of social and emotional well-being and mental health. And in the post-pandemic era, it is the role of the school to provide so much needed stability, security, and consistency for our young people. But as my neighbors have mentioned this evening, for our youngest students, this has not been the case. They did Google Meets, they did the hybrid model, virtual learning, they learned behind masks, and when they came back to school, there were a lot of different regulations. Now they're at the transitional building, and next year, my young son, who will be in 2nd grade, will be forced to attend a 3rd building in 3 years. I'll close with this. My oldest child served as class president and graduation speaker at Ashton last year, and he often spoke of the Ashton family. I sincerely appreciate all of the work of the committee, but I sincerely implore you to please do better and keep the Ashton family together. Thank you.
Excuse me 1 second. I just want to make a clarification. I know Mr. Adams is going to flip out, but our school districts and our voting districts are 2 completely separate and different things.
My name is Christy Lavoie. I live at 5 Annamac Drive, 1 mile away from Community. My son is a rising 5th grader at Community and is in the proposed redistricting territory. At this time, there are no promises that he can be with his classmates, although that is his goal when they go to the transitional building next year. I have a couple of concerns with how this was displayed to us, like everyone else, finding it out on Facebook, kind of stumbling upon it. Ever since I've seen that, I've had a pit in my stomach with just thinking about having to have this conversation with my son if he isn't able to stay with his friends. It's 5 classes at Community. It took a while for him to make those friendships because it is overwhelming. You're not with the same kids. You finally make those connections, and then, oh, by the way, it's 5th grade, and we want to send you out with a bang, and maybe not so much. Maybe you have to go to a new school and make new friends and start all over with new teachers in a new environment. And that's after living through a construction zone and not having a playground and not having green space for PE. So it just feels like it's been a long road for these kids. So I, like everyone else, just want my child to have that continuity in education. I would also just say our great scores, which are amazing, and my husband and I were very impressed to see, are the reason more families are going to come. And so as I see this new redistricting and the downsizing of Community being a tier 5 school to a tier 4 school, I question the planning that went into that, because more people want to come. So why are we taking away space? We're giving 1 extra school to Ashton. It's not extra. We're taking the kids at Community, we're sending them to Ashton, and we're once again going to be without space for these kids. So it's just a Band-Aid, really, approach that I don't think it's very effective, and I do feel like it feels like a bait and switch. I'm looking at my neighbors who just bought their house last year, the year before. They want the community school education, and they're not going to get it. So how does that make them feel proud about being a community resident in the way that I felt proud about being a community resident before I saw that note on Facebook? So I just ask that you take all of this into consideration, and especially the scores are going to draw more people in. So how do we attract them in and foster an environment where we can now be this, be the town that I know we can be? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So now we're going to move into new business, and our first item for discussion only, proposed redistricting of student attendance areas / boundary lines for the 2024-2025 school year. One of the things that we want to convey in this, or Dr. Thornton will convey, is actually the detailed thought process that went into this. Just the facts, when, you know, we may agree or we may not agree, but there are some facts that I think it's important for everyone to know as we continue having these discussions and continuing across Cumberland having to have these discussions. And I think Dr. Thornton will be able to answer some of the questions or comments, concerns that came up during the public comments, because I think they're already built in. But we'll let Dr. Thornton begin his discussion. The school committee, of course, is here for questions and comments and input. And again, this is just for discussion only. There is no vote tonight. And we'll.
Madam Chair, if I could thank the parents for coming out tonight, it's truly appreciated. If you want me to meet with you, I'm happy to do that. My cell phone, if you want to write it down, is 401-996-4247. Happy to text with you, meet with you. So I just want you to know that, okay? 401-996-4247. Or my landline, 658-1600, extension 305. Okay. So, Madam Chair, tonight what I thought I'd try to do is get all the thinking we have to date in one location. So I did write something up. It'll get posted on the website tomorrow, but rather than read an 8-page letter to all of you, go to the first slide, Mike. I tried to highlight key areas I'll kind of touch upon to hopefully answer some of the questions posed tonight. So if I could start, I'll read some of this verbatim, and then I'll kind of move around a little bit. And once again, it'll be posted on the website probably after this meeting if you want to get it, okay? So from time to time, adjustments to school boundary lines within school districts nationwide may become necessary, and that's the case here in Cumberland. Adjustments like this usually take into account the overall population of the school and also changes in the population in a town as folks move around. The persistent increase in student enrollment over several years with our ongoing renovations has prompted us to look at this once again. And the goal really here is, once again, a balanced distribution of our 2,200 plus students in our 5 elementaries. We want to have all of our schools be supported and be balanced. That's really the goal. As we look at this, several factors play a role in this. Certainly the current and projected enrollments play a major role. Where the kids live in town certainly plays a role, and also the efficient bus routing of all these students plays a role in this process. Let's first look at enrollment. As mentioned by one of the parents, enrollment, as you know, is going up. I probably tell you that every meeting. In the past several years, as I mentioned, in December 2019, 2,023 students, 2,230 in 2024. I want to also drill down further on that. From October to the holiday break, we gained another 26 students, new net students in elementary school. From the new year, January 2nd, we gained another 11. Right now, we're at 5,075 kids, K-12. That's a big number for Cumberland, really big. So we are growing almost every day. In terms of school construction and building capacities, let's talk about that a little bit. As you know, we're currently undergoing major renovations. We have 4 renos and 1 potential new school at BF Norton. I say potential new just because, as you know, the voters did vote, but the next step is the planning board has to approve the plan and the council must release the funding, so I really can't say it's done yet, but we're on the way to a BF Norton. So in looking at these projects, I know it was mentioned by one of the parents about community. RIDE, the state, sets guidelines for how big a school can be based on the square footage of the school. And community was just too big based on the footprint of the building. So that's the challenge. RIDE also dictates to us what's called 21st century elements, like those open learning commons someone mentioned. That's a requirement we have with RIDE when any new construction. So if you do new construction, we must do those kind of components. That's how that works. Thanks, Mike. Looking at Cumberland Hill and Garvin, as you know, those two were completed. We had a renovation and new additions at both. Those schools are supposed to hold approximately 432 students using a three-track model. Three-track meaning 3 grade 1s, 3 grade 2s, 3 grade 3s, that kind of thing. And right now, Cumberland Hill this year is around 429 in the building. And if we did change the boundaries, that could go down to around 419, give or take. And Garvin right now has around 410 students, and that could go up maybe 10 or 12 students from that if we change the boundary next year. So I want to point out, despite the increased capacity in these two schools, our enrollment going up still faster than predicted is a challenge. I know one of the parents mentioned about, maybe we should have known better about the projection of enrollment. I would just tell you, we use different companies. We use NESDEC and Cropper. We had 3 projections done over the last 10 months, and they're all saying we're up 5 to 7%. We're going up faster than that, so it's really unusual. Coupled with that, we're getting more kids back from BVP. That's also part of the equation. This year, as you know, we're all about Ashton and completing that work. The addition was completed last year, and Ashton will be a 3-track school next year, also holding around 432 students. That's the plan. You may know Ashton historically was a 2-track school, and that's how it was. However, because of the influx of students recently, we had to add a 3rd track in K, 1, and 3 for the growth. So that already kind of made Ashton a 2/3-track school, and that was really not part of the plan. Next slide, Mike. The shift I just mentioned is important when we talk about the community school plan and the transition from 5 to 4 tracks. The 5-year capital plan in 2018 and approved by RIDE in 2020 really talked about moving the community track from community to Ashton. That was the plan in 2018 when they drew this up. However, as I just mentioned, having a partial 3rd track already in Ashton, we can't do that now. We can't neatly fit the community track into Ashton. But that was the 2018 thinking pre-pandemic. So community school, currently around 675 students, surpasses RIDE standards for capacity. And right now, RIDE's calling for us to be around 575 in a 4-track school. That's the plan. Community's really been in what's called a 2-phase process. Phase 1 was last year, as you know. We have the new addition, which had a new art room, a new classroom, and a 4-track cafeteria. That's important. The CAF at Community is sized for a 4-track school. That's how they planned it. That's the spec of that community cafeteria. Phase 2 of Community, 24-25 school year. As you know, they'll come to the trans next year, and then they go back to the completed community school. Next slide, please. The transition of Community from a 5-track to a 4-track, as you know, calls for the relocation of around 120 students, and that's just by contract, looking at grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, et cetera. It's important to note, once again, the plan previous to put the kids at Ashton is not a solution anymore. So that's our challenge in 2024. BF Norton, right now, next year, potentially could hold around 404 students, and that puts them near their current capacity. BF would have 3 tracks in all grades except grade 1. There'd be a 4th track at BF, and that's due to the enrollment in that boundary area. What happens is we look at the map. We have dots on the map where people reside, and we have certain streets that have more grade 1s and grade 2s, that kind of thing. So in BF, there are more grade 1s, so we have to have a 4th track at BF next year. That's how it works. Also, Ashton next year, given the current layout where the students reside, we're looking at a 4th track of grade 1 and a 4th track of grade 2 at Ashton. At Community, if we do the rising 5th graders, which we have in the plan, there'd be a 5th track of the grade 5 at Community. That's in the plan right now when they come here. And then Garvin, right now, with the current numbers, would have a 4th track of grade 3. Those are all just things we have to adapt to based on the enrollment right now that we're seeing. I know the question someone asked me was, how do you do that? We essentially look for space with the principals, look for instructional spaces, and try to get creative. That's how we basically do it. I know someone mentioned, once again, about the Learning Commons. Do you mention that, I think, about the Commons and why not make the Commons classroom space? That's a question we often ask as well with RIDE. I think, certainly if push came to shove and we keep growing, we'd have to look at that and maybe, look at those conversions somehow. But the regs do dictate that we do have those open areas. That's what we're doing right now. Next slide, you're on next? Thank you. So considering the growth in town, and I do want to put on the table there is a likelihood that, I'm sorry, let me go back. In this model, we do have built-in what I call safety valves, where, let's say in grade 2 at Garvin and Cumberland Hill, we have some grade 2 challenges. It's kind of full. We have space in grade 2 in other schools in the district. So as people keep moving in, we have the ability to absorb some students at different buildings, but it could be grade 2, the safety valve is BF, and grade 3, the safety valve is Garvin, that kind of thing. So we're looking to build a model that has some ability to adapt a little bit, but that's the plan. With BF, if we did do a BF, it opened in the fall of '27, that's when it opened. And just to be clear, we would have to look at boundaries again, I believe, in 3 years. And why do that? To really efficiently balance the district and take the pressure off the other 4 schools. If BF was built, it's a 4-track school, you'd have 575 kids there, so we could add 175 seats at BF. And next slide, Mike. I'll come back to that. Let's talk about town geography and logistics. Cumberland's kind of like a piece of pizza or a wedge, as you know. And in looking at boundaries, that's part of the challenge, just the geography of Cumberland. We have 3 main roadways. We have Mendon Road, Diamond Hill, and Whipple, and they all play a role in this. Also, we have to look at how do we bus these kids efficiently in these locations, given where the schools are. Now, creating a boundary involves capturing a series of streets and neighborhoods that add up to the right amount of kids, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. And there are situations around the nation and around Ireland, and certainly in Cumberland right now, where you may be near a school, but go to a school that's a little further away. That happens now. I believe it's called New Clark. New Clark is close to Cumberland Hill, and they go to Ashton. So that's frustrating, I know, but that's sometimes how it happens with boundaries, where you don't go to the one closer. Our real goal is, how do you effectively balance 5 schools in terms of capacity? So that's the challenge. Next slide, please. Looking ahead at the potential BF, if we did a BF, we would look to model filling BF from the south going north. And that's because we have to get the seats. And Mike, go to the map for a second. We have a map I'll show you at the end. This is a map we did when we did Cumberland Hill. We just modified it now, and we'll blow it up when we come back to it in a minute. But essentially, if you look at the colors here, the purple, Mike, down below, purple's BF, right? So if you build a new BF, that boundary has to go up almost to Garvin. Garvin's the second blue dot. It would climb up to get the 575 you would need. So that's what we're looking at down the road to really be efficient and effective. So that's just, I just want to put that out there as a conversation. Also, at the same time, the red is just, as you can see, way too big. We have to look at areas like Burnt Swamp Road, currently goes to community. Roads like that, we'd look to consolidate probably and try to get those into Cumberland Hill. It's like a cascading effect. We'd have to take the southern part of Cumberland Hill, push that down, and make everything fit equally. That's really the goal here. So I just wanted you to kind of know about that. Next slide, Mike. You can't read that, but okay. So basically, why the current boundary change proposal? Why this current plan right now? The best thinking right now we have is this plan. I'll just take some time on it. The task at hand was to make community a 4-track school from a 5. We looked at the southern boundary area, and we looked at several models. We looked at Bork. We looked at Broadview. We looked at Angel, all these different locations. The trick is finding the right combination of kids to fit in the building. That's the challenge, and also do it efficiently. What you don't want to do is a model where you would have multiple buses going up the same streets, bringing some kids to Garvin, some kids to Ashton. That's not really efficient, so that's kind of a challenge in this process. So the Windsong Pound Little Pond area gets around 94 students, and it does fit in the Ashton classroom plan. The 36 or so Lippert state students do fit in the Garvin plan. It is totally understood that this creates a cascading effect, and people have asked me, why not just take the community kids and put them right to Garvin? Just cut out the middle part. That was looked at, absolutely. Just logistically, it just didn't make sense in terms of just efficiencies and busing and just numbers. When you take those kids, we didn't even have enough kids to fit in the Garvin model. So we did look at it, and we keep looking at this. We're not, I know someone had told me, I think our first idea was our best idea, and we stopped. I just want you to know we keep looking at this a lot. and I have a team, and we have people in transportation, people in enrollment, logistics, and we sit around. We have a map where the dots reside, and we see where people live, and we keep trying different combinations. And we're not done trying, but I just wanted you to know, as of this week, this is our thinking. Next slide, please. From a busing standpoint with the current model, if you went Garvin from Pound, Little Pound, you're adding the bus time for that model. So you'd add on around 20 to 25 minutes if you did that bus run from that area to Garvin. Lippet is around the same time whether you go to Ashton or Garvin in terms of busing, and we did that with Durham. That was their math on that. So Lippet Estates essentially is predominantly below Pond, Little Pond on the map. Mike, back to the map, please, if you could. So part of the thinking, too, is as you can see here, Lippet, well, I'm colorblind, so that's kind of a blue. What is that, green? That color. That's predominantly below the Pond, Little Pond windsong. So that's another consideration as we look at the shift south. I would add also, if we did do the BF conversation in a second shift, you'd probably see that boundary go down regardless at that time with BF to make things balanced. I just want to be transparent with you on that. Next slide, Mike. So really, given the substantial numbers of students in the Lippet area and the numbers that are in there, the grade 3s, grade 2s, grade 1s, it just makes sense logistically to put that group in that location. And what else can I say? Next slide, please. In terms of rising fifth graders, that is built into the current model. Just so you know, we did build it in, and we have 28 rising fifth graders in the district affected by this, so we would look to call the parents and offer them the opportunity to either stay where they are or go. To do that, they would simply just let us know. Along with that, we have a waiver process for siblings, where if they had a sibling, a first grader, second grader, they could contact us and try to get the waiver to get them to go together. And we go to great lengths to try to get people where they want to go. Historically, we approve around 80% of our waivers. I'm not sure I can achieve that next year, but that's been our track record for the past 2 or 3 years. I think I covered that last slide already, Mike. Just final thoughts. I know Mr. Rogowski talked about it. We are, I know, truly proud of all of our schools, and I totally get how it's frustrating to want to have to move, maybe more than once, more than twice. I completely understand, but I truly believe all of our schools are doing well, same curriculum, great teachers, and I would say when we did move the 36 from community to Cumberland Hill, I know there was a lot of frustration, and I know in talking to those folks now, some of them, I think, feel much better about it, but I know it's hard, hollow words from me right now, talking to you on the stage about this right now. But I guess all I want you to know is we really are looking at this. I'm really willing to meet with you, have conversations. Not done looking at ideas, but Madam Chair, that's essentially my essay, I guess. So you'd see this online later if you want to see a copy of it without the yellow. So happy to answer any questions.
I definitely appreciate you outlining that for everyone, so everyone can see that this, there are a lot of factors in play, and it's not something just written on the back of a napkin. And like you said, this is the first in-depth discussion that the school committee has had on this. It was presented to us for the first time.
Yeah, if I could just add, I know there was some fear maybe we kind of slipped this past the goalie before Christmas. The goal was to first broach the subject and then not vote on it for several meetings. We keep having discussion only. We're not going to just vote on it. Had we wanted to be like, just quick about it, would have been discussion action before Christmas and would have been done with it. That's what we're doing. We're trying to have multiple meetings and keep talking about it. So that's the goal. You won't see it for voting. I'm hoping the committee would vote on something before winter is over. We have to model busing, so that'd be the goal, but not right now.
Okay, I'm sure we have several questions and comments from the committee. We'll start with Mrs. Feather.
Hello? Ooh, God. Okay. Thanks, Amy.
Let's try this again. Oh, it's working.
Hello?
Mike, why don't you go to the map for the questions?
Okay. first question actually doesn't, my first, goodness gracious, I swear to God. So, probably doesn't help, no, and I work in technology, so. So when I spoke with some of the parents, they had several creative ideas, and I know that I was on the subcommittee that initially viewed the results of the plan, and it was exceedingly difficult to think about creative ideas, right, due to the complexity, as you just described. We can't be the only minds on this. Can we have a peer-based community discussion on this in any way? Can parents contribute or teachers in some way to this planning? Well,
Yeah, I mean, to me, I welcome any input because it is solving a puzzle, so happy to have any input.
I just, yeah, I like to try to think of, again, putting our heads together and everything, and I know that you are listening to input, and we're listening to input and everything, but at some point, it has to kind of all collectively come together into a plan. And I won't take all the question time, I have questions. But you said logistics were an issue for just moving to Garvin, and also I know that logistics were an issue for like cutting off at like Angel Road. I think parents are going to want more specific information than just logistics. Can we spell out a little bit more about why those weren't good?
I'd have to come back next meeting with our numbers. We have numbers, and essentially, when you look at the numbers in Angel and what you're trying to fill at Garvin, it didn't work, or if it did work, there are other challenges. So if you want us to come back in 2 weeks, we can have bullets of Angel, Bork, Broadview. We could talk about that, but in the end, like I said, we keep coming back to this model. But yes, we can give you detail next meeting. I don't have it in front of me.
And in other states, they have temporary spaces, and I know we don't want to do temporary spaces, but why is that not a consideration for us?
Can you say more about temporary spaces, what that means?
Trailers, yeah.
Oh, trailers are first hugely expensive. They're hard to get logistically, months to get them. Electrical hookups, water, where you're going to site them, and also I don't think it's really a solution. So you're thinking instead of changing a boundary, just do trailers.
So part of my reasoning behind that was because we know we have this big redistricting that needs to happen in 2027.
Right.
So if we know we have something that has to happen in 2027, we're essentially putting a Band-Aid on it right now, and then going to do something larger, as you outlined with what we're going to have to do when we hopefully get the new Garvin school. So, BF Norton school. So I just kind of wonder, like, what can we do that is can we think creatively and think of any other temporary type of solution if we're, that doesn't harm as many kids?
Yeah, we can certainly come back to you with the cost estimates for 5 trailers for a community, and we could site them, and then, the lead time, we can certainly bring that back to you.
I know other people probably have questions, so I'll let them go.
Ms. Smith, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask a little bit, we did this when we moved some of the children from community up to Cumberland Hill, when we opened Cumberland Hill. And some of the things that I believe that we had done, the rising 5th graders, as you mentioned, the waiver for other children in the same household. And I believe, did we also try to maintain or keep those students that were being moved into the same classrooms in those grades so that they had familiar faces around them and had an easier time to all acclimate together?
Yes, at that point in time, the request from some of those folks was to be together, so we did that.
And we would be looking at the same thing regardless of where or what neighborhood gets moved or doesn't get moved. It doesn't matter. We're going to still look at these same factors.
We could certainly do that again.
Okay. And then the other, looking at the map, I mean, we can see that the 295 line is the orange line, yes, going through. So, Mike, if you can move down and show me where Angel Road is. So that's Angel Road there. So those are some neighborhoods that are already on Angel Road that are in Garvin? And so
Yes.
are we looking that the buses then would be able is that why the busing would be easier? Because they already have buses in that area versus crossing over 295? Was that the understanding of what you were saying?
Can you blow that up?
So if the buses are already coming down, so it looks like the top roads on Angel, the first part of Upper
Right.
Angel Road is already.
Yeah, I think for that, I would need Tracy, our transportation person who's with us on the team.
Okay,
But I think you're correct on that, but I need Tracy to be sure.
okay. So what we're doing, and then you said in essence, we know that when the new BF comes online and becomes a four-track, this is shifting regardless. The
Yes.
anticipation right now with the numbers and the proposals and all, because the heavy build
That's a fair
is
statement,
happening
because,
north, not south.
fair statement, if you take southern Garvin, if you will, and that goes to BF, then yes, you would pull up here to get the northern part of Garvin, yes.
And that's more because development has occurred north versus already being built in the south. I know we have the Ann and Hope and the St. Patrick's to be contending with at some time, and that could throw everything off, but
You mentioned Ann and Hope, I know we talked to the planners about that, and right now, they maintain we'll only see 9 students from Ann and Hope.
how many do we have coming in from Cumberland Crossing? Right, we all know.
Crossing, we have
We-
56.
I mean, we can only do with the best information that we're
Right.
given. I mean, there are challenges
Right.
with the planning of the town and the information that they can give us, but, we have to go with the information we get, that seems crazy.
Right.
Can you go back? Are you zoomed out all the way? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting, because I was just looking at this version of the map last week. Cumberland is a weird shape, so we called it a pizza slice. And the elementary schools are not, they were built how many years ago? 100 years
Some
ago.
are a long time ago.
Some of them.
60s, early 70s.
Well, B.F. Norton or whatever.
B.F. Norton's from the 19th century.
Yeah, from the 19th. But you can see some of the challenges even just in where our schools are, that they're not, if you were to do it all over again, I'm sure that's not where the schools would be. But that's where our schools are now. And that's one of our challenges, I would say, just in general, in the geography of our town. But that's a challenge. It's just a noticeable challenge. Other questions, comments, Mr. Rogowski?
I have so many. Sorry, first, I just want to make the public aware that no discussions happen amongst us outside of meetings. I don't know if people know this. I did not know this until I got onto the committee. We can't talk more than 2 or 3 of us outside of a meeting together. We can't even email things together. It's called a rolling quorum. It's an Open Meetings Act violation. We could get a huge fine. So I want to assure you, what you see here is what you get. And I've told a couple of parents this. There's no discussions going on behind the scenes with the committee. It's not allowed. It just doesn't happen. So first, that. I'm going to be in the newspaper so many times. I have many thoughts on this. First, I completely, 1,000% agree with the Lippitt Estate families. I do not think it makes any sense, and my own district will not like me for this. It makes 0 sense for them to quite literally cross through community kids. They will crisscross going to schools. If you want to talk about transportation, then what I got out of reading it and hearing it again tonight is that we want to save kids a 20-minute bus ride. And instead, to save kids a 20-minute bus ride, my 4th grader loves the bus. She does not want to be driven to school. She has a 45-minute ride in the morning to community. She doesn't want to miss the bus, and I'm sure there are a bunch of other kids that don't either. To save kids a 20-minute bus ride that probably some of them really like, we're going to uproot 36, 37, 38 kids and change their lives. And I do not agree with that. If you want to talk about buses, obviously that would be Tracy that could come from North Cumberland, after the middle school drop-off, go straight down to Little Pond, pick up kids down there, swing into the neighborhood behind the orthodontist, and continue straight on to Garvin. It's a very direct, straight line route. But that's something for later, and I don't think that bus routes should be a determining factor in changing the lives of so many kids and families and uprooting them. And I know that others on the committee do not feel that way. We know that redistricting has to happen. We know it has to happen. So that's just my one concern there, is it makes no logistic sense to move these families for the convenience of other kids having a shorter bus ride and making the numbers fit a little bit better. There are other ways that we could do it. So that's that. My next concern is that we are also going to have to redistrict the middle schools. We know this is coming. It's been brought up. I've had parents ask me about it. We're going to have to redistrict for the middle schools because we're just going to have to, based on the numbers. We all know it's coming, and we're going to have to redistrict when the new BF is built. Why not wait? We have survived this thus far, and it's not ideal. No, it is not ideal, obviously, to stay the way we are. But if we have made it work thus far with new kids constantly coming in, we're going to be backfilling all these spaces as soon as we move kids out anyways. Why not wait and do it all at once? Make every change, one redistricting for all the elementary schools, for the middle schools, do one fell swoop, one change. And that might be hard, but why is that not an option?
Let's have a question, so to be clear. Where do the 120 kids go at community? They can't fit in the building physically. Where do they go?
Well, that's what I'm asking. They fit so far. So what changed? Yes, they're fit. So is it the transition building that is driving this?
No, next
Next year, the trans
Sure.
building.
When we do the construction of community, it becomes a 4-track school and you lose the ability to fit. As Ryder said, it's oversized.
Right. Are we removing classrooms?
The current plan over there, they have 4 learning commons. They had an addition, but 4 commons, so yes, a couple.
Which we could use as classroom space if needed. I'm just, no, just,
Isn't there
I'm
a
just,
state
I'm just
regulation
asking.
that you cannot
I
have
don't,
common
that's,
space?
We won't get reimbursement for the bond money if we do that.
If we have one common space versus 4, I mean,
It's the square
do other
footage
schools?
per student that is the state regulation.
I can tell you, at Garvin, we did have some luck reducing 1 learning common, but we have 4, maybe we can get 3, but they do maintain, we have to have these learning, open space learning common areas. But maybe 3 is possible. I can't say for certainty right now, but we can try.
And that's, and that's, again, things that we don't talk about outside of this meeting. So this is just me trying to present ideas that other people have also asked, like, why don't we wait? And that's good to know. But I think, I understand that my school has to move. My kids have to move. I totally get that. I'm trying to cause as little disruption to their lives as possible. And I know that probably they would not get, I don't think anyone moving from community would get redistricted into, it would probably be too far north, but who knows? Maybe not. In a waterfall move later, a cascading move, you're talking about another move for families in 3 more years. And yeah, that's all I have right now. But just, I fully agree that we need to keep the Ashton kids where they are. I don't see any need to move them. It just, there have to be other ways to do it.
Back in 2017 or 2018, when we first started talking about the bond issue, the entire plan was to add 4 classrooms to Ashton, remove the preschool, so that we can accommodate new enrollment and the kids we would have to move out of community school. We have 4 additional classrooms going into Ashton. Those classrooms and everything else is already packed full. We've known since day one, before anyone voted on the bond, that redistricting was going to happen, kids would be moving south. On top of that, RIDE, in their ultimate wisdom, has been telling us since 2012, when I first got on the school committee, that our enrollment was going to drop every year. That has never happened. Doesn't matter how many times we told them that, It has never happened, and no one's ever listened to us. The town never listened to us. I'm not going to mention specifics, but the simple fact is that our enrollment has climbed continuously since 2012, year over year. We have been warning the town and the state, and no one has listened. It's not until only recently that Department of Education has finally acknowledged the fact. They wanted B.F. Norton to go down to a 2-track school. That's just not even in the realm of possibility, which is what, and we kept trying to figure out, and we redesigned the renovation for BF probably 3 or 4 times before we finally settled on the idea of possibly creating a new school because we needed the enrollment space. The problem with BF was that there was no place to expand, so that building was going to get smaller no matter what. Most of these school properties were not well thought out because, as we all know who lives in Cumberland for any length of time, this town, going back 100 years, has never, ever planned for the future in any normal way. Back when, in the early 90s, when they were handing out building permits like they were confetti at a wedding, I mean, and they keep, like Dr. Thornton said, Ann and Hope, oh, you're only going to get 9 kids. They said that at Berkeley Commons, they said that at Cumberland Crossings. It's never been true. We are doing the best we can with the realities that we're presented with. And the simple fact is, the plans that we had originally for the way this construction was supposed to be going got completely disrupted by the town council back in 2018 when they delayed us by 6 months, which led us right into COVID, which screwed up everything else, and we were not able to do renovations the way we wanted to or in the time frame that we wanted to. We're behind schedule by 6 months to a year on renovations because of what the town has done to us. They're not going to like hearing that, but quite honestly, I don't care because I'm not running for election again. The simple fact is we need to plan a long-term redistricting for the entire town. We should have all the elements that we're going to have to do, whether or not we're looking at 2027 with B.F. Norton, with the middle schools. We need to make sure that the kids that are being redistricted are being redistricted in a way that they don't change their middle schools, at least, for the first couple of years. And then if we get, then redistricting can happen in 27, whenever we have to actually do the redistricting of the middle schools. That's why it's important that the kids from, part of the problem is that Broadview would make a lot of sense, except for it's just too many kids. We would be dividing a neighborhood really right in half. There are no good solutions. There's only bad solutions, quite honestly. And this is what we're left with, because they put schools on top of each other. BF and Garvin are too close to each other. Ashton and Community School, too close together. And mark my words, in 25 years, the argument is going to be they're going to have to build another elementary school in the far north of town around Pine Swamp to accommodate for all that open land that will one day all be houses. But nobody ever talks about that at the town level or the state level. We can only do the best with the hand that we're dealt. And the town, another beauty is that the town has never consulted with the school department when they've been doing planning for the town. We were always left out of the conversation. They come up with these wonderful ideas for gigantic property developments where they're adding dozens and dozens of houses, and we are never told until we all of a sudden pass by and we go, oh, look, there's 20 new houses right there. Go ahead, Dr. Thornton.
Actually, for the record, for the past few months, I'm now on a committee in the town. Any group planning on building a building in town, there's a panel with fire chief, police chief, myself. My one question always is, what's the impact on students in the town? So.
Yeah, and a lot of the inclusion of the school department into the town planning has happened, quite honestly, because of Mayor Mutter. So he should get his due. And he's also on the building committee, of course, along with me and others. We need to ensure that when we redistrict, though, whether it's when it was from Cumberland Hill when we redistricted a couple of years ago, and we're redistricting Ashton, Community School, BF, Garvin, we need to ensure that all of these kids are going to move one time and one time only, to the best of our ability. There was something else I wanted to mention, and I've forgotten. So, and I understand the parents. I mean, I moved when I was a freshman in high school from one state to another, from a factory town to a white-collar town. Devastating. So I get it. You guys are lucky in the sense that your neighborhoods are staying intact, your entire neighborhood, if this plan goes through, your neighborhood will go. I know it stinks, but at least the kids will be together somewhat. So, and we are looking at, I mean, we were in the office just a couple of weeks ago in groups, because we can't all meet at the same time, to look at the plans. I asked a lot of questions about Angel Road, because it seems to make sense to me to move kids on Angel Road. The problem with Angel Road is, the way that the streets are designed and built, it's very tough for buses to get in and out of there properly. And it'll add a lot of time. And quite honestly, if you go from Lippet to Garvin, your bus ride's actually going to decrease, because they're a first tier school. And Ashton Community School are at the end of all the runs, so all the delays throughout the day happen to Ashton Community School. That's why Community School sees ridiculous delays, whereas Garvin and BF are normally very much right on schedule and shorter bus rides. It's just, it is the complexity of the way this town was built and has continued to be built that we have these problems.
I wanted to ask, and thank you, Mr. Fiorello. It's nice to have your sage wisdom on this committee. I wanted to ask about, there was a question, Mrs. Feather, I think, brought up, from Mr. Rogalski, about the community students that, so part of this plan is communities coming to the Trans Building next year, and then would go back to their new community. Part of this plan was to, I think, alleviate moving kids to the transitional building and then moving them to a different school, which is what you're all facing right now with Ashton. I understand that. But that, I think that was also part of the thinking. But moving all of community to the transitional building during the construction, I think there was a question about whether we could accommodate all of those students in the transitional building.
Sure. And the answer is yes. Right now, we're modeling around 549. We did walk the building months ago with the principal. We can, with a caveat, we are renovating 2 locations upstairs in the trans. They're all the old girls and boys locker rooms, and those will be 2 classrooms next year. So by doing that, yes, we can fit. And those rooms in the end will be part of the high school.
So all of the students currently in community can fit in the
No,
trans,
the 549,
in the current community is,
675.
That's why the original construction plan was for Ashton to come back online before community school got renovated with their 4 additional classrooms to house all those kids so that we can move community school up to the trans building. But that got waylaid.
So, quick question. I know that this was something, moving community up here was something that we had to vote on fairly recently, like in the past year, right?
Last spring?
Past spring, something like that, yeah, because we had those summer slams, and then the summer slams, we were going to do a 3rd summer slam, meaning summer slams were getting all the construction done over the summer, and not doing the construction during the school year. And because our construction costs went up or would go up significantly, we decided to move community school here. Can we revisit that decision? I'm trying to think creatively.
Well,
I'm just
just
trying
add
to be
also,
creative.
in terms of that question, I can tell you, 2018 was the original thinking of the summer slams for a community. I can tell you, when I was here, it was last fall, we talked about it as it got closer, and the construction people and architects realized that was just a bad idea. Summer slams typically are difficult. You can't finish on time. I know one parent emailed me and said, how about a summer slam then just second shift for everything else? But you can't leave, open construction and just working on a second shift. But yeah, the summer slam idea, I think, was a poorly conceived idea in 2018. I wasn't here, I can't speak to it, but I know I brought it to you because if we didn't address it, we would have had a problem, that community.
Yeah, it was really, pie in the sky thinking at the time. And this was before COVID, because once COVID happened, there are a lack of workers now in those trades, which was becoming a problem. And the supply chain issues, everything got completely screwed up. And even the summer slams got very stressed, even for the work that we were doing. It's just, COVID did not help anything, so. except for, people learning they have to wash their hands.
Smith?
Dr. Thornton, even if we did the summer slams, and we were to go, even look at going back at that with community, we'd still have to move children out. Is that correct? Because it was going to be 2 phases, so we would have to move them after the first phase no matter what, because we'd never get to the second to meet the ride requirements of our class sizes and.
Yeah, and all I can tell you is, as you get closer to a project, you look at it, it was readily apparent, I think, in the faces of the construction leads and architects, a summer slam was not going to work.
Right.
I just want to make one comment about Garvin Elementary School. Garvin is within my, my district, so I'm also one of the liaisons for Garvin. And as such, I've always gone to PTO meetings over the years. I walk the school, I volunteer occasionally at Garvin. It is a wonderful school with very dedicated teachers and great kids. And I would be very happy to send my child to Garvin.
I'm going to support what Mr. Fiorello just said as well. I grew up in this town. My first school was Garvin. My entire family went to Garvin and absolutely loved it. I was able to, with Dr. Thornton, even take my mother back to look before the school opened this past season, just to see what had been done with all the construction. And if you go around to that back parking lot and you look at that back of that school and you're from that town, and Bonnie, you used to live off the side street there, it's a campus. It is beautiful. It connects the baseball fields, the sport, the blacktop. Everything connects over there now, and it's a wonderful community. Over 100 people, 100 students, I believe it was, showed up when we had the ribbon cutting. It's just very much supported with the PTO as well, and whoever goes there, and I'm not saying this to try to sell it to Lippitz or anything, whoever goes there is going to be very lucky because it is a strong family community as well. I'm happy that I can represent the district that also goes to Garvin after being able to grow up in the town.
So, Dr. Thornton, what do you have on your list over there of the things that we've brought up as potential things to look into?
Right now, get details on trailers and how that could work. I have.
Excuse me, Dr. Thornton, I just want to mention one very important thing. The rental of trailers is not a covered expense by any of the renovation money, so we would not be able to use that for the bond.
I'll bring it back to you. Homework on Bork, Broadview, Angel, the detail on those, numbers, other areas we looked at. I know we had what we called Model 1, Model 2, get more detail on that, back for you, like a handout, I think. Middle schools, mapping, middle schools, the concept of less learning commons, and could we push that element at community? Ms. Smith mentioned to me looking at Lower Bear Hill to Garvin, so I put that on my list, and that's what I have right now.
I think there was also a question raised about delaying changes.
Right.
But we know that there are some changes that can't, like the community thing, when the new school is built, it's smaller than it is now. So those kids are going to have to move
Right.
at one time or another. Well, they can't fit in the trans building.
Right.
But that idea about, is there another, like, what would it mean if some of this were delayed or pieces of it? So we talk about two things. We're kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, you could delay pieces of it now, but then the other thing is, okay, wait until everything's ready and do the redistricting all at once.
Right.
That seems like, you can't, that doesn't seem like it could really happen, but is there something we could do to lessen the impact on, I mean, especially Lippit Estates, the community students that have to move, we're trying to avoid them moving to the trans building and then moving to a different school after that, which is what Ashton's had to, I mean, what Lippit had to live with. But
Next meeting, I can bring Megan Havrilla back. She's our lead planner in terms of the sequence, and have her here to answer questions on that.
I think it's also important to note that we're under a timeline for reimbursement money, projects having to be completed and started, and that was also delayed because of COVID and also by the town council.
Mr. Rogalski?
I want to stress again that I think we all know and we all understand that redistricting has to happen. I get that. Community families get that. Ashton families get that. Garvin families get, it's, at some point, pretty much everyone in this town, with the exception of a few neighborhoods, is going to be touched by redistricting. We know that. I think it's just about make it make sense. Make it the easiest one change. I fully agree with Mr. Fiorillo. I don't want anyone that would have to be redistricted to have it again in 3 years. And obviously, and I've said this to parents too, I cannot predict the future. I don't know what those dots are going to look like in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. We might have a massive influx of parents. I don't even know. I can't even imagine where families are going to grow and change and come. But I want to make it as easy and painless as possible. And I don't want, I want it to make sense, and I want the best for my families and for all the families in this town.
I think everybody is getting a good understanding of the complexities of this and all of the moving parts of it, and we know in the end, something has to give. And we, as we're expressing tonight and learning more, and we'll do again in 2 weeks, trying to understand all the aspects, the options, being thoughtful about it. But certainly, kids are going to be redistricted, and that, nobody wants that, but that is the reality, so we have to figure out how we're going to do that. Yeah, Mr. Rogalski?
I actually do have just one more question. We're seeing a lot of real estate turnover we're seeing real estate turnover in North Cumberland as the older generations are aging out and moving out and younger families are moving in. So when we move all these community kids and when we make it a 4-track school, as new families are moving in, where are they going to go? Like what is, sorry, and that might not be, you might not be able to answer that
No,
tonight. But,
I would say
and
right
just
now,
everywhere.
just hypothetically next year, if, that happens, we put them where we have space. So if we have space at Cumberland Hill for a grade 3, if it's a grade 3, we put them at Cumberland Hill. Depends what grade it is and what we have space for. That's why we have what I call safety valves. Ashton has some room now with 4 tracks in grade 1 and grade 2. If they're that grade, they can go to Ashton. It really depends on the grade.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the challenges too, that, I've been learning just in my time on the school committee, is the maximum number of students per class and how you have to, as
Yeah.
new students come in, figure out which school has which classroom that has space in it that
Yeah.
doesn't make you go over the maximum number of students.
Right, I should also mention, we go by this sheet, right? And it has maximum number by contract. So by contract, the teacher's contract, I can go 2 over the number. So it's 23 for the younger grades and 25 for the older. So I can't go past those numbers. That's why we kind of have this working document. We kind of look for space in different grades.
Sorry, just going off of that, something that was brought up to me and that I also noticed is that in the proposed redistricting, just for example, using that, the community 4th grade classes will be at 19 and 20 students. The Ashton 4th grade classes will be at 27 students. So I don't see how that's an improvement. And I don't think this is the same one. So with the proposed redistricting, as it stands right now, community with its 4 tracks will have 20, 19, 19, 19, I think. Ashton's 3 tracks of 4th grade will have 27, 27, 27. Not only are those overages, that's a big jump in numbers, and so I don't see how that makes sense. And obviously, that's just one very specific
Sure.
classroom.
So
but-
here's my response to that. These documents are always like a moment in time, a snapshot. So for example, that 27, 26, 26, would obviously want to get that down. I already know we have 2 transfer requests in that want to leave that grade and go somewhere else. I'd accept those. There's always a possibility of opening up another section, another class, make it a 4th track there. I wouldn't do that budgetarily until the summer if we really had to. Right now, though, we put it in yellow there to show us that's on the edge, right? And we kind of model that, where you mentioned Ashton, I'm sorry, you mentioned community with 4, so 2020, 19, 19, obviously the space there. So once again, it's capturing the right streets to give you a number that's in the ballpark, right? We're in the ballpark now on this, and then from there, we keep working the numbers, but that's how you do it.
I have a question, Dr. Thornton. When we talk about rising 5th graders and excluding, what would you call it? When we allow them to stay? Yeah, exempting them from the move. Rising 5th graders. Because I know a couple of people tonight commented that they didn't have faith or trust that their rising 5th grader would be able to go, like, be with their
Right.
school.
Currently, that's
Can-
in the plan right now.
Is that, so when the time comes to vote on this, will you be in a position for us to say that that is guaranteed? That rising 5th graders can stay?
Sorry. In this current model, yes, you have the rising 5th graders in this already. If you look, and you'll see here, grade 5, there are 8 at Ashton. You see small, 6-point font there, I think. And then you have 20 at community. It's in the plan right now. 28 total, if you did this plan.
Now, my son is 21 now, and when he was a rising 5th grader, he got redistricted from Cumberland Hill to community. At the time, I don't know, I didn't really think about it. Maybe I was too busy working, but what he has told me now since that move is that he was able to have his friends from community, Cumberland Hill, meet new kids at community, and when he went to middle school, he had this greater group of friends. Now, that's just reflection. I'm not saying that to convince anybody about that, but I thought that was an interesting reflection from somebody who's lived through it, but he also didn't live through COVID. He graduated high school during COVID, and that was another issue, but whatever. Yeah, Mr. Rogowski.
Last one. Just for those rising 5th graders who are going to be grandfathered in if they want it, transportation provided, or will parents be responsible for transporting them?
Transportation is not provided initially. What we typically do is, if you're not in a bus zone, after the first month of school in September, when there's space available, we put them on the bus, but initially, you wouldn't get the bus, no.
Okay, all right. Hey, this is the longest discussion I think we have ever had in my 8 years on the school committee at an open meeting. So I really appreciate all of the public comments, and I appreciate everyone in the school committee being thoughtful and thinking about this. So in 2 weeks' time, we will do this again. And Dr. Thornton will present his thinking, where it is, where it's at, some of the different things that we asked about tonight, and we will look at all of this again. So I think that concludes this agenda item. This is also one of the longest meetings we've ever had, but I really... Oh, so anyone can leave now. We're going to continue with the boring other stuff of our meeting. But thank you all very much for coming. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Linda, for going back online and taking the meeting minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move along on item B. Vote on resignation and separation agreement with CTA employee, including discussion if requested by CTA employees. So I need a motion on this. Ms. Smith makes a motion to approve.
Yep, second.
Mrs. Feather seconds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. The next item, C, discussion and or vote on retention of Hennius Carol Lombardo as special legal counsel to conduct investigation into student complaint. Motion to approve by Mr. Fiorello? Second by Mrs. Feather. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next item, discussion and or vote to approve authorization to administer the 2024 Rhode Island Student Survey. Dr. Thornton, you want to intro this?
Madam Chair, you have the survey, I believe, in your portal, middle and high school, something given every other year, and you have a copy of the questions. I'd recommend approval.
Question by Mr. Collins.
Dr. Thornton, do parents or students have opt-out options on this if they don't want to take it?
Yes, if someone does not want to take it, they can opt out.
How would they go about doing that?
They would contact the principal of the building.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Discussion and a vote to approve amended policies. Mr. Fiorello.
First is the K2 use of school facilities. As I mentioned, we did a major rewrite on this. It hadn't been overhauled in a very long time. One of the big things is we've gone from 2 fee tables to 1 fee table with modifications for a couple of different things, like whether it's a nonprofit, whether they're in town taking care of 80% of the community, and also for what is considered a long-term rental. We've also given the superintendent a little more leeway on making some of those more nuanced decisions regarding that. This actually results in a decrease in the costs that some of our major renters will be using, like the CYSA and the Cumberland Junior Clippers. They are both very happy with the rewrite. We've also separated out the information on the tulip insurance and the frequently asked questions. That is going to be now part of the application packet. Cindy Shabbat and I will be working on revising the application as well. If anyone has any questions, otherwise I would make a motion to approve.
Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to.
Next is the E2 transportation policy. We just added some language regarding bus depots. We have a couple of situations where we may be able to utilize a bus depot to really streamline our bus services and maybe free up a bus. Again, that is something that the superintendent will consider, and then he would bring it to the school committee for us to actually vote on the approval of it. So the final decision would still remain with the school committee. One of the caveats to that is also that bus depots do not necessarily need to adhere to the walking distance guidelines for the rest of the policy. So if anyone has any questions, otherwise I make a motion to approve.
Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to approve E2 transportation. Do we have a second? Oh, second with discussion by Ms. Smith.
I just want to clarify, though, the bus depots are, in doing that and looking at the options of, it's getting away from state contracts, which are costing us a high amount of money, where we can bring it in-house.
Right, statewide is exorbitant,
Right.
and we're looking for options.
And this is not for regular public schools, but for those that we're servicing in the other schools, such as Mercy Mount or others.
Correct. We're currently modeling some statewide options.
Thank you.
only. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next item, discussion and or vote to approve the first reading of the new policy.
This is H14, use of latex gloves. This is a policy that we are required to have based on Department of Education as well as state law. To be honest with you, it's a little bit of a silly state law. It talks about not allowing latex gloves in the schools of natural rubber, and then the state law actually goes on to say that, but if you are going to use them, you have to post a notice with very specific lettering on the notices where they need to be placed. We, I believe, have a good common sense policy on this. I would ask for an approval of this policy, of which this is really just an approval of the first reading.
Right,
So-
we don't actually vote on this.
We started to, so we might as well. I'll make a motion to approve the first reading.
Okay, Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to approve the first reading of the new policy, second by Mrs. Feather. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes 7-0. Let's do it again.
I will take these both together, if that's okay. F4, the prohibition of CFC and HCFC-based refrigerants, as discussed at the last meeting. This is another policy that we are required to have, actually, one of the policies that we're required to have for the reimbursement money for the bond referendums. Basically, it just says that we are not going to use CFC or HCFC-based refrigerants. We're going to phase them all out within 5 years. We are not even sure if we have any at this point, except for maybe some window units, which we know won't last another 5 years. So we do not see this as being a fiscal problem for us down the road. And also, we have B5, approval of handbooks. Although we have been approving them the last few years, we've never really had a policy giving us that purview. This policy does that, and I would make a motion to approve both F4 and B5.
Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to approve the second reading of new policies F4 and B5. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Smith. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes 7-0. Next item, discussion and or vote to approve homeschool instruction request for the 2023-2024 school year. Motion by Mrs. Rogalski to approve. Second by Mrs. Feather. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes 7-0. Discussion and or vote to approve resolutions. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 15 resolutions. The first thing, all of which passed, actually, the first order of business is we have 2 resolutions, SCPR-01-24-3 and -8. Those were, that the information regarding those, so obviously the agenda's posted, but the paperwork that's supposed to accompany those resolutions was not in the drive. So I would first ask, I would move passage of a motion to table number 3 and number 8, and then we'll take the rest of the resolutions, if that's okay.
Mr. Collins makes a motion to table number 3 and number 8. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. Okay.
And with that, and now that that motion is passed, with the remaining, I would ask, we have the 13 resolutions, SCPR-01-2024-01 through 15, -3 and 8. So those 13 resolutions pass Fiscal Management Subcommittee 3-0 as motioned, and I would move passage to the full committee.
Mr. Collins makes a motion to approve resolutions 1 through 15, -3 and 8. Do we have a second? Second by Mrs. Vogel. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda, discussion and or vote to approve payment of bills. Mr. Collins.
Yes, we have payment of the bills in the amount of $1,232,155.73. Payment of the bills passed Fiscal Management Subcommittee 3-0, and I'd move passage to the entire full committee.
Mr. Collins makes a motion to approve payment of bills. Do we have a second? Second by Mrs. Vogel. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda, school committee comments, school liaison reports. Any comments from the school committee? Okay, next item, vote to go into executive session. I don't believe we have that tonight.
Motion to
We do not.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Fiorello. Do we have a second by Mrs. Feather? All in favor? Aye. It passes 7-0. We are adjourned at 10 o'clock PM.